We are going live on YouTube, everyone, just so you are aware.
We'll call to order the finance and personnel meeting of Tuesday, October 15th. Roll call, please.
Amy Johnson,
Here.
Lee Dashlet,
Here.
Casey Boer,
Here.
Wayne Schmidt,
Here.
Midge Swedberg,
Here.
Scott Meverden,
Here.
John Ortlieb, Kevin Schmidt.
Here. Did you confirm the meeting is in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, it is.
Okay. For a motion to approve or change the order of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mitch, second by Lee. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Everyone had a chance to read the meeting minutes of September 17th,
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
approved by Kevin,
Second.
second by Mitch. All in favor?
Point of order, are we approving just the 17th or the 17th and the 19th?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not see the 19th.
Oh, I thought you said
I did not. That's right. So,
I amend my motion to say
okay,
No, second.
second by Mitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Did everyone have a chance to look at the bills? Motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Lee. Second by Scott. Roll call.
Meverden,
Yes.
Kevin Schmidt,
Yes.
Dashlet,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Wayne Schmidt,
Yes.
Boer,
Yes.
Ortlieb,
Yes.
Swedberg.
Yes.
Is there anybody in the audience for public comment? No public comment twice. Third time. Seeing no old business, we'll move on to the new business, sewer camera. Casey or Matt?
Yeah, so everybody, I think, has the sewer camera in their packet. This is something that's been at Public Works, and talked about probably since June, and back and forth on the agenda. The last motion that was made, I think we talked about, and looked at different options in cameras, was probably in August, I do believe, with a motion coming out of there to let's see where our budget lines up and see what it looks like to if we can buy it with budgeted money. Everybody has a sheet of paper that I just handed out. It's not part of your packet. It was sitting on the top of everybody's spot when you walked in here this evening, where a couple of things that we said that we were going to use budgeted money for. And the breakdown is on the top, and then the bottom 2/3 of the sheet is the line items. That is not depleting those line items. That is where we feel that we are going to have funding available to make these purchases work out. So it was brought back to the Public Works today and recommended to come up here by a vote of 3-1 with 2 people absent from the meeting, Public Works meeting today. And I would entertain any questions anybody has about the camera. Sure.
Is the camera we're replacing now?
This is a camera that we're replacing, but this is a crawler camera. What we currently have now is a push camera. It's made more for like a 4-inch sewer pipe. This would be for our bigger pipes, sewer main and storm sewer main. This is actually like a remote control car that has different size tires depending on the different size of pipe.
And it's cheaper to buy our own versus renting one when you need it?
Well,
Do all the time.
we talked about that at Public Works this morning too, and we've talked about that in great length, right? If we would televise about 20% of our sanitary system throughout the year, we would have about $20,000 a year. So this camera, this $108,000 would pay itself back in approximately 5 years.
So 5 years.
Yeah.
If you buy this, then can you do more than that you rent it for?
we could do as much as we want. Well, as much as our staff would allow us to do.
How much were we paying annually?
Approximately $20,000. That we give or take, depending on what size project we're doing, is what we're paying annually in televising.
As needed or like on a schedule?
Well, one of our bigger problems is like if we have an emergency problem, then it's a schedule. They come in. It's around what did our last one cost? $1,500 for them to come in and televise 150 feet of pipe. What we try to schedule throughout the year in televising is kind of out in front of our 5-year capital outlay.
Is there anything where like the city of Kiwanee and the city of Algona could go on them together?
That question was brought up and asked this morning.
Okay.
I think because of the expense of it, it's something that we could possibly rent out to them, but I think I would prefer to send our employees there to use it and charge them an hourly fee or by the foot or something like that, rather than we have it, they have it. What's wrong with it when it comes back?
Kind of like the people on there.
Correct.
Who do we rent from now?
Who do we rent from now? What's the newest
There's
name of
Great
it?
Lakes that we do some with. Like Peters is a lot more with Great Lakes than we would, but Qualis is the other one that we use.
And do they send their personnel out to run it?
They actually do this for who we contract with now. They do that. They have a big, huge truck set up with TV screens and everything else in it. Different size cameras for different operations. They actually have cameras that'll go down the main and they can go up a sewer lateral. And
That sounds like a better deal than just having one thing for us for $108,000. That's a lot of money.
What's the life expectancy of this?
I'm going to turn that over to Casey. I know he did some research again this afternoon on it.
So a lot of their cameras, they got cameras as old as like on this software, as old as 2012. They do have older ones out there. It all depends. Like if you go to like a Qualis where they're doing it 5 days a week for 10 hours a day, that's a lot of miles of pipe they're going in.
So probably a 10-year.
I would say I would like to think we get more than that, but a lot more
But
than
there's
that.
maintenance that has to be done to it, things that go wrong with it, so it's not just,
Software
we're this and we're
updates.
done for 10 years.
Software updates are all
Training that has
free.
to be given to our employees to do this and the whole shop. So this is not just 170, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of money to see install our sewer lines when we call somebody out, do 150 feet when they need it for $1,500,
If they can come.
if they can come.
A lot would be to plan like your capital projects that we talk about at Public Works. Some of our records are some we don't have, like where there's a new house going up in Navarino Street. They're looking for a lateral. We don't have records of it. Some of the stuff we have is as old as 1967. Is the newest stuff for that stretch of street we got. Where our thought was if we get something, we could get on a rotation where hopefully you get through the whole town within 4 to 5 years and just keep going around in the rotation and keep our records up to date and do an inspect. If you got tree roots, if you got problems in your pipe, you're gonna have to look at repairing. Was kind of our big thought of it.
So if I got a 10-year life expectancy, and I was doing some cooking, it's costing me $10K a year to buy this, and a return on investment would be $10K. If we get longer than 10 years, maybe it'll be less than that. The actual cost to do it. And right now we're paying $20K. I mean, we could probably do more sewers, you're saying, if we have a whole can. With the personnel we got, but we don't know.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think we look at the pipes for the next couple of years, so it's already voted not to do that.
Well, but we're still doing televising out in front of those capital projects. The yearly televising doesn't go away because we're not doing any capital outlay next year or the year after.
And this just
We're
doesn't
still
mean-
televising, and there's still records from, I think we have some stuff back in the late 60s that we still don't have records for.
And it only does meetings, not laterals.
That is correct. This would not go up a lateral.
This was something that was discussed earlier in the year. I remember it was back in April. I checked with our waterworks division and our shots were to see a couple of different options. There was, I don't recall exact dollar amounts, but it was like 40 grand and 60 grand. I don't know if it's apples to oranges or whatnot, but
A lot of it's in like the kind of called the software. Like this one maps it as you go. Like we looked at another one too, for instance, that was about 45,000. That one we literally would have had to write everything on a piece of paper. This one you can basically put it in as you're going, mark laterals, cracks. This one you can locate with a locator if you have to, or a lot of them don't. This one has elevation to it as well, where if you got a sag in your pipe, it'll tell you that. It tells you water levels. You don't have to, there's a lot less guessing in that. A lot of them are, you can see it in all the cameras, but this one kind of does a more thorough job of taking the guesswork out of it.
And saying we do 20K a year, I mean, that seems like a lot.
Well, for a while, we were doing almost $40,000 a year in televising. At points, we were spending $35,000, almost $40,000 a year to televise.
If you could go in all different kinds of pipes and size of pipes, and
Well, any kind of pipe we got in town.
that's what I mean. Yeah, so you could do that. Now you can't do that. And so, yeah, we're spending that kind of money, but it covers a lot of different ground. And what this one thing does, and I have a feeling these are like copiers. After 5 years, the technology just doesn't work anymore the way you'd like it to. And maybe this is one of those things you're better off leasing or getting somebody else to pay for, and you pay for it when you need it.
It all kind of started because a push camera is no longer, that push
I
camera is
understand that.
old,
I mean, that makes sense.
and they can't service anymore. So we started to look at something that would be more beneficial to what we would use it for.
Do you use the push camera besides paying the $20,000? The one that doesn't work?
We use the push camera when we can. The problem with the push camera is you literally push on the cable. So you pushing it in a main, and if it's designed to go in a 4-inch pipe, works really well because the wire isn't going like this. When you put it in a main, we have to hook it up to, we run our jetter through it, and we tie it onto our jetter, and then we pull our jetter back with the cable, and then we televise on the way back.
Sure. Kind of like when you pull wire.
Correct. Yep.
That's all my question.
On the sheet that you gave us?
Yep.
Just to clarify, so all of these dollar amounts are in the budget right now, plus you've left some because we still have 2.5 more months of the year. Correct?
That is
So
correct.
There's still dollar amounts, so if any of these areas need extra, if we get a ton of snow, if we need more salt, if we need fuel for whatever.
Yeah, this is not depleting any of those accounts. The only one it would be depleting is the two at the top, the general fund contingency line, which is there for if we need the money, if we don't use it, it goes into the fund balance at the end of the year. And then the other line underneath it, clerk treasurer overtime, Aaron and I are both salaried, so that was budgeted and would never be needed.
And we can't do a lease, like a 5-year lease, which is thing you have to do with like the tasers we did not have.
Not that we can find.
I mean, you covered most everything I wanted to say.
Sorry, the question. just
No,
kept
that was
coming.
great. Like, it's nice when I just kind of flow off like that. Let's say it lasts 10 years, based on your experience with other ones, we're paying $20,000 a year. We're going to pay $300,000 in the time that we would get $100,000. So, I mean, maintenance, yes, but it seems fiscally responsible. If we're going to be investing $200,000 and we can spend about half of that, it would make sense to do it. I guess a question: how often do we have to venture into the laterals as far as,
Laterals, we typically don't.
demo?
It's laterals. Usually when we find about laterals, a homeowner has a problem. They've already called Bowman or another plumber, and they shoot their camera in from the house. That's usually when the laterals are done.
Okay, so generally, whether the fact that it doesn't have the capability to do that is largely a moot point,
Yeah.
because we're only going to be doing things.
And I think that adds another 20 or 30,000 if you want to push camera.
Push camera.
They only can go from the house.
Yeah.
That is correct.
And how
It's
much
small.
of the city is televised right now? I remember we saw map and some are green and some are yellow, but I don't remember.
I don't know. There's probably what I would call a third that probably is not done. And did you ask that question this morning too about, I didn't quite have the right answer at the time, about software updates. So I called them this afternoon. For the life of the camera, software updates are free. They have, like you said, this software has been in since 2012. Now, even if you have an older camera, they make it compatible with all cameras. So as long as you still have that camera, they said they should be able to, one, service it, and two, you'll never lose your software for it.
The mapping data that you talked about, Casey, does that go to an applicable program that the city has and uses?
It basically, the program basically saves a spreadsheet, like a picture, like a PDF of marking your laterals. And then it also puts like a spreadsheet together where it says 230 feet you have a crack or a lateral or something. So it all can be saved on a flash drive. And then we typically have paper copies of everything that we have, and we have electronic copies of it.
In the GIS, you
It's
would be able
all-
to put that PDF connected to that manhole location from manhole 7 to manhole 8. You could actually put that video into our GIS mapping.
I don't know if we do the video, it might be too big, but we do have the PDFs for everyone we have. We do.
Correct. I'm sorry. The PDF file would go in there.
I don't know if the video would, I guess it'd be too big.
Yeah.
A lot of money. I mean, is this a need or a want?
Depends
I
what
think-
day of the week it is. Today it's a want.
I think it's something that the televising needs to be done. Just a matter of how we want to go about doing the televising.
Next week, Wednesday, it could be a need.
Oh, I know, but we can't run on hypotheticals.
2 weeks ago, we could have used it twice in the same day for places that we don't have laterals and they're searching for laterals. Outside that, it's more just for our maintenance. Is the big thing.
Once you map the city, you got that on the computer.
What about the utilities? The utility have anything similar?
They wouldn't have anything to use a camera like this for. You can't put it inside of a water line.
Water treatment, recommended. We have money in the whole, just like treatment.
There is, if you look down towards the bottom of that, there's the wastewater treatment fund would pay for about 37.5% of it.
Did they pay the whole thing?
No.
I'm just gonna make a comment because I'm on the public works. Okay? I'm not saying there isn't a need for this. The only thing I felt that I voted no today is that I think we could better spend $107,000 right now. I think there's a lot of stuff coming up that we're gonna be looking at, and I just think we should hold off.
Well, we're actually only spending 47, 47.
I understand that, but these are all overdrafts, that monies that we're saying we're gonna have left over. There might be more too, who knows, depending on what takes place. I just want to explain why I voted no. I'm not against the camera. I just think right now it's not, the timing is just not right.
And this quote is only good to the end of the year, and remember, can't forget, the prices will go up next year.
You hear that from every contractor, Amy. Somewhere between 3 and 10%, I would guess, would be the what it would go up.
To Wayne's point and question, I guess I would have a question for you back off that. If we do not approve this for the camera, is that $107,000, $108,000 going to be available to use for some other items of need before the end of the year?
That's money that's in the budget.
Before
That's
the end of the year?
earmarked in these line items that is currently there today.
Can the $107,000 for the camera be budgeted for next year? And bought?
We have to do some real work in the budget.
Or if it's come out of capital borrowing.
Well, that was the task that Public Works said. We don't want to buy it with capital borrowing. Let's see if we can figure it out in the budget. But I mean, the finance and personnel can say, let's look to borrow it with finance money.
Well, as we discussed, this amount of money would be available for other things besides the camera.
That is correct. That, yes. Yeah, that money, if you decide to buy, that 107,000 will be in the budget, can be used to buy.
But 40,000 of it is sewer funds.
Right,
So
yeah.
67,000 is sale.
Yes, not the 40,000.
For the wastewater treatment facility.
The 40,000 wouldn't be able to be used for anything unless it was sewer related. The 67, thank you for that correction. The 67 could be used for other things. The 40,000 has to be used on sewer related because that's paid by ratepayers, not by the tax dollars.
Otherwise, it goes back to the bottom line, correct?
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't go out of there. It doesn't disappear.
It goes back to your cost of goods bottom line.
That is correct.
They wanted to give more, but they had a little more expenditure these last few months, so we ended up using most of it, and all that had left. So, otherwise, we were trying to put the card on 50/50.
And when we do contract out the service, that all comes out of a general, it doesn't come out of waste.
We have a line item in the budget that we use.
So this is more like a 3-year payback, really, 3.5 years. You're looking at if we're pulling 67 out of the budget area that we would normally pull the 20,000 or whatever, correct? Or
He's asking where do you pay the bill?
treatment?
Does it come out of wastewater?
Some of it comes out of, like a lot of it, a good majority of it comes out of like probably the capital when tied in with the project that we end up doing. But then the rest of it would come out of the sewer. Of that fund.
So the wastewater treatment facility, that portion was going to be unforeseen, the unknowns, the last minute calls.
Or anything we'd have scheduled outside of the big project.
Correct.
Goes to the wastewater treatment.
Line item in the wastewater treatment. Unless we'd be televising a storm, then we categorize it to the general fund under a storm.
Which we don't really have. Only records for storm we have are ones that we've done within the last 10 years maybe.
Or emergency work that had to be done.
Would we be able to see, I know we're saying, about 20,000, like a 10-year look back on that, like specifically, would you be able to break that out? Or is it hard because some of it's built into capital projects? And it's a point of comparison instead of, I trust the numbers you're saying, but like if we can put a finer point on it, maybe it would give more clarity. Because I think about when we talk about meter one, maintenance, right? Like that's always been staying ahead of issues is important. And there was water issues during the one deluge that we had some months ago. Is it kind of a moot point? Or you feel confident that that 20,000 per year is accurate, or would we be able to get it? Would I be able to know for sure what we've spent?
Well, so our televising that we do on a normal year, right? We could cut that out of our budget at any time we wanted to and not televise anything. There's some municipalities that don't televise. That's part of our budget every year that we earmark to televise. When we do a capital project, all of that pipe that goes in the ground before that road gets paved, that all gets televised as part of the project. That's all built into that hard cost of part of the project. And they're televising that new pipe. They're looking for if there's a slip seal or a broke joint or where there's a saddle, if it's slid, that all gets televised before they pave the road. Ideally, we don't have to go right after they pave and you have a leak somewhere that we have to go dig it back up.
It's hard to say because I know you were on it. I think when we did a whole bunch of it. I don't remember the dollar value what that was, and that basically got us from Division Street.
Yeah, I think it went from Division Street up to the First Street.
I know about First Street for sure because we
First,
fixed First Street.
And that's the problem for years and years and years, they weren't doing it. And then all of a sudden, that one year, we were having problems with roads bubbling up, and there was leaks, and there was, we were getting I&I with this infiltration into the, they were processing more water at the sewer plant than you couldn't. And we said, well, we gotta figure something out. And at that time, Cedar said, well, why don't we start televising? Well, we televised, we put enough aside, we televised some Peterson Street here. By luck, we caught First Street, and then just before Candy Days, when it caved in, right there by Von Hill. And that's when we said, okay, we gotta start getting some kind of order so we can keep track of it, and if we just take sections every year or every other year, so that we can keep up, so that we can say, okay, when we do our capital improvements and that, we gotta get Buchanan Street done between Fremont Street and Navarino Street. There's a bad leak or something there, or there's a bad pipe. We would probably caught that stuff at St. Mary's, at the time.
Understanding
yeah.
infrastructure, I agree, I'm 100% of having one, it's just the timing of raising these funds to purchase it now versus budgeting for it, purchasing next year. That's where my hesitation is. I would prefer,
I'll tell you, next year is not a good year.
I don't think any years are good years.
That's if we're going to push it down the road, then let's just be off of the conversation, because if this year right now isn't good, the next 5 aren't any better. We just earmarked $4 million to spend over the next 3 years. There's a lot coming down the pipeline. So if the answer is no, that's fine. Let's not just push it down the road, because it's a lot of data that we don't have to keep moving down the road.
We paid $40,000 for a lawnmower, just remote control.
Mm-hmm.
And we're paying $107,000 for one. Doesn't usually, it just goes forward and backwards down the tube.
Yeah, this doesn't cut grass.
Yeah, I mean, it does, all it's gonna do is film poop. I mean.
That's what it does.
why
It films
is
poop.
So, I don't understand why it's $107,000. When we both control lawnmower, which is far trickier, is only $40,000, but this ought to be much cheaper
Technology
than
is
that.
much more with a camera and that, you don't take pictures of cutting the grass.
Well, we could put a camera on that, we could take
Well, you can
pictures
do
at
what
the
you
same
want with it,
time.
yeah, but I mean, it's.
Oh.
For the right program, you could mark your.
Hold on, guys.
I'm not cutting grass.
grass and see it.
I'm just saying $107,000 is a lot of money for this.
It is.
Nobody's arguing that.
Are the extra bells
Oh,
and
I
whistles
thought we
worth
were. I
it?
thought we were talking about spending
I think so.
$107,000 for a sewer creeper.
We cut off about $20,000 worth of the generator and what's it
There's a
called?
cabinet
That it all
wash
sits
down
in.
hose.
Yeah.
It's got we went and looked at one that was about 40,000. I sent the guys to
Down in
down in
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, and they looked at one, and it was basically a PlayStation controller and a cheap plastic camera, and that was 40,000. You know, like,
That's what I said. and the GoPro.
find one that'll work, and we can do it. One of the big things I think is it's pressurized by nitrogen, so it senses if that pressure drops, which then it saves you from having to replace electrical components because of seal failures. It'll actually notify you of seal failures, so I think it would save on repair costs is probably the biggest thing why you're paying more upfront. So a lot of the other ones aren't charged with nitrogen; they have no gauge on it that tells you if it's
Has a leak or
leaking
not.
or anything.
If we're looking at not seeing this for another 5 years, and we're paying roughly $20,000 a year, it's gonna come out of launch, right? And I know it's not exact. It's never a good time to spend any money, right? For anything, sometimes, right? Your point of it's a mower is 40,000, and this is it can't be that much more complicated. I don't know if anybody on this besides the ones that I've looked into could make that determination. I think the opportunity to come out even and create or have it be better value beyond that is worth it. I would make a motion to recommend it the council.
Motion by Casey, and second by Lee. Do a roll call, please.
Yep, 1 second. Okay. Motion by Casey, second by Lee, right?
Yes.
Okay. Ortlieb.
No.
Kevin Schmidt.
No.
Swedberg.
No.
Boer.
Yes.
Dashlet.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Wayne Schmidt.
No,
Meverden.
No,
Motion fails 5-3.
Moving. The American Legion bill, Matt?
Yes, so this was brought up and asked to be put on here after the meeting last week. I want to say 2 weeks ago, but the way the month landed here was just last week. And their ask was for, I think, $18,000 to $20,000, or to look at if the city would fix the siding on the side of the building, by a window where there's some rotten stuff in the window. And since then, I had a chance. Mike Freilich came in and sat down in my office for about 2 hours and kind of went through, walked him all the way back to at least when I started here, and CJ kind of being the head and Tracy taking over from there, and brought him through the process of, in 2019, this council made a motion. I think we spent about $12,000, and we put a rubber membrane over the roof there to stop the bleeding or stop the rain from coming into that building. And that rubber membrane was a 10 to 15 year patch to put on that roof. The guys that installed that said, this is going to keep the water out, but it's coming down the pipeline. You got to do some serious work up on that roof. Okay. So I explained that, and back in 2019, I want to say it was right around $85,000 to replace that roof on that building. Also at the time, we talked about replacing all the windows in that building. There's a huge expense to replacing the windows in that building. For those that don't know, the heating system is a steam boiler that's in the youth club, in the garage, right off the garage, that heats that building. Every year we spend trying to chase around to find parts and pieces for those radiators, they're really neat looking, but there's parts that are not ready available for any of that in there. So we're either making something, having something made, our staff time. So when you get into the brass tacks of what it's really going to cost, instead of just putting siding on the building and not taking care of it, we were just about estimating just over $200,000 to fix that building. And it's not what I told Mike, that it's not my job, or it's not the city. I have to look out for what's the best interest of the city. And at this time, to stick $20,000 into that building, knowing all of the other work that needs to be done with it, I think at this time we look at spending $300 to $500, and we fix the hole that's on the outside of the building and the windowsill, or the sill under the window where it's tipped actually into the building where water's coming in. And we look at the long-term future of where our American Legion is going to be. Not to belabor it or push it away, but to put $200,000 into that building right now, I don't know if that's the best place to invest $200,000. So
Tore that part of the building off, the roof just stayed like it is. So that was just added on there.
that is correct. And we've never had a structural engineer look at it, but it's one of the things that I talked with Mike about is, before I'd spend $20,000 in putting siding on it, I would recommend to the council to spend $20,000 to remove it and look at where the potential American Legion would move to. So with that, I would answer anybody's questions, or try to answer. Nobody is here, unfortunately, from the Legion tonight, but
so you estimated roughly $500 to,
I would say $300 to $500 that we would be able to find in the budget to try to patch up, stop the bleeding, and stop the rain from coming in.
where did the 20
His ask was to reside the whole building, I think. and it was like $18,000 to $20,000 is the number they used last week.
Well, the roof is the biggest concern.
That's mine too.
Roof is leaking. So,
But in
okay
5
for the
years,
moment. That's one of those things you can
Mhm.
push down the road a little bit.
Yep.
But the siding, the building looks terrible, and the siding really is not good at all. It's, you either need to say, let's redo the siding and the windows and make it a nice looking building, but then you still got the problem with the heater and all that kind of stuff, or you gotta find some place for them to go. Then what do you do with the building? Let's say the American Legion did move out here, what's the plan for the building? You're gonna tear it down?
Mhm.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation. I'm not going to physically tear it down, but it'd be my recommendation to this council.
We'll get a wrecking ball to do it. But that's-
You ever seen in between the two buildings? Back in between that, how they connected it? You gotta go in there and look at that, and it looked like something, I don't know, we could do on the weekend.
And if you're ever on the roof, that's how it looks on the roof too.
Up on the roof, yeah.
That's where all the problems are on the roof.
That happens when the roof like this. That was so deep into there that you start moving something that you could lose a whole wall.
All right, where the wall is bad, let's say $1,000 to fix it. What would it cost to throw some siding on and make it look decent?
Steve, and he didn't bring in the quote when me and Mike Freilich spoke, but I want to say he used the number of $16,000 to $18,000, and that was with the mayor doing the work.
And even if we did look at that siding, I think on that point right now, we have to decide. We wouldn't throw 18,000 at it. Let's fix the immediate problem, the $1,000. Let's give them up to $1,000, and let's fix the problem for the winter, and then we have time.
It's our obligation to find them a place, correct? According to the agreement that we got from the park commission.
You could probably give it back to him for $1.
No, but isn't that why we're talking?
That is
about
correct.
Maintaining
Yes.
the building.
Yes, that is correct.
So, what are the options out there as far as finding them a different place? I mean, how many square feet do they use?
Well, one of the things that me and Mike talked about, and I don't know if anybody has ever had the opportunity or the chance to have been in the VFW building in Kewanee, is kind of similar to what it's I'm going to say a 1,200 square foot ranch. That's a complete open concept with a men's and women's basement, a men's and women's bathroom that you go down the steps and it's just a big open concept basement that has your furnace, water heater, and then storage for like chairs and tables and stuff like that. ADA, walk right up to the front door and in the front door. And it's, what is the cost of that? I think you could look at a brand new building like that for that $250,000 before. Yeah.
Well, the other one is location.
And the location. Yeah. Correct.
So,
Decide that tonight.
Like I said, I think the best thing we do is stop the bleeding, fix what we can for, even if it's $1,000. We use some budgeted money. We find that in the budget, and we fix. We can't use the sewer only.
No, but you can use the others. I mean, if you look for $1,000.
Yeah.
We're up to it.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep.
So what are you looking for, a motion?
If you're just spending $1,000, if you're just stopping the bleeding, no.
I think it's more information for this council at this time. If we're looking to spend $500, $600, $800, Casey has the authority as part of the budget. It would be possibly done as a budget amendment that we'll be doing. If we spend, if he doesn't have it in his building maintenance, it's going to come out of here and get moved over as part of the budget.
Let's get it to the council anyway. So
That's
what kind of recommendation are we looking for? Nothing? Just let it go.
Go ahead and
it, it's no different than if you, it's no different than if you're gonna do something at the youth club because the window's leaking at the youth club. It's the same building. If you're gonna look at putting siding on or replacing windows or something where you're gonna have a contractor do it, or it's gonna cost a substantial amount of money, then I think we need a motion out of this body. But if it's just building maintenance, let it go. And if Casey can't do it for that, then come back to this body and say, hey, we need to look at 4,000, 5,000, whatever that might be.
So we didn't do that direction, go ahead with that.
Task Mike to look at where the water's running into the building and the hole is in the wall, and maybe a gallon of some blue paint to try to, fix something up without just pounding plywood on it, that we would make it look cosmetically. Some of it is, yeah.
So we're good with that conversation? Right? Any agenda items for the next meeting?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like, on the next agenda, I'd like us to further that discussion on that hidden rental, research on that. And I'd also like us to research public comment. There's other communities that allow people to comment on things that are on the agenda. Right now, we can't. And if you look at our committee meetings, it says the same thing. They tell you come to a committee meeting, but you can't comment on anything that's on the agenda. I think we need to give people the opportunity to come forward if they want to speak on something that's on this agenda, the opportunity for 3 minutes or up to 5 minutes or whatever.
Because it's exactly the opposite. It's not on the agenda.
Yeah, this we just brought up.
I know Sturgeon Bay.
I agree with you.
I would like the administrator to research what we can do with that public comment.
Okay. The only thing is, my treasurer is asking can we push it to December's meeting, the hydrant rental, for the simple fact of so we can get through in November here, our budget session and everything else.
Okay, do the hydrant rental for December, but could we research the public comment that we'll have something?
I think we could give you an answer for the public comment.
Thank you.
Something that you're looking for, something to start out as soon as possible, or start
Well, it
out
would be
January
nice
1st.
Because we're getting a lot of feedback now all of a sudden about our cable going away and our communications, and people are saying, well, where do we have an opportunity to speak our mind? Well, we don't, unless you call your alderman. And so I know other communities do it. If you can research it, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Can we also add on there, communication to the public? I talked to the mayor about doing something very similar to the Wolf Review, putting out a publication 4 times a year, kind of summarizing everything that we do as alders. We could alternate. First 4 aldermen could do an article, second 4 could do it the second time, but just getting information out. I know you do a great job, Aaron, with Facebook, but the Wolf Review is very well received by the community. It's a way that we can promote what we're doing as city council and keep our constituents informed.
Just a question about that, Amy. Who does the Wolf Review for the school district? The school district does it? Staff?
Cool.
Well, no,
Don't they hire a company to do that?
yes, and it costs $1,800 each publication, not counting posters.
Okay. And then does the school district mail it, or does
That I
The
will
company.
the company does?
check.
Okay.
Could you touch base with me tomorrow or after this meeting? And I have a few more follow-up questions with that, just so I have some
But I
place to
just want
start.
to bring it out for people to see if it's something that we want to do. Ideally, it would just be something, I don't know how many pages we would want to do, it would just be something that we could send out. Thank you.
Can we give the school like $40 and just put our pages in theirs?
Just saying that.
All we have to stick with the building.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I think
But then we
That's
got
what we did.
protect that. Too.
Yeah.
And the amount of people who are paperless utility bills.
Oh, yeah.
We gotta
Okay.
do something.
We'll do some work on it and try to bring something back with some information.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
No.
Oh, you're here for the long haul.
Yeah, this is.
I would love to do that motion.
Yeah, next meeting date is Tuesday, November 19th. Anybody want to read that motion yet?
Motion to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties or investing in public funds, or conducting other specific public business, whatever collective bargaining reasons require a closed session. Property purchase, and C, considers employment promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body or jurisdiction exercises responsibility. In parentheses, city clerk.
Second by Nick. Roll call, please.
Dashlet,
Yes.
Ortlieb, Boer,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Wayne Schmidt,
Yes.
Swedberg, Meverden, Kevin Schmidt.
Just check to see if you're on your screen.
With the check.